Hey you guys, welcome back. He's so pissed. Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Shania. So for today, I wanted to sit down and talk to you guys about all the books that I recently accumulated this year so far. I have about 20 or so books that I want to talk to you guys about, and I don't want to prolong this video with a long intro. So without further ado, let's just start talking about all the books that I've recently hauled. Alright, so the very first set of books that I'm going to be talking about are actually a series that I've recently hauled, and I did talk about this series in my most recent video where I paired BTS songs with books. So if you guys haven't checked that out yet, be sure to do so. But anyways, the series that I recently hauled was To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. So this is a 3-book series. We have To All the Boys I Loved Before, the first one, P.S. I Still Love You, the second one, and then Forever and Always, or no, other way, Always and Forever, Lara Jean. So I have read the very first two, and I haven't finished the very last one yet, just because I got sidetracked with a different book that came out, and I decided to put this one down for a little bit and read that one instead. But if you guys haven't heard of this series before or seen the movies on Netflix, this is a series about our main character, Lara Jean, who is just going through high school like any other normal girl, but what she does when she falls in love with someone and she decides that it's time to move on is she writes them a letter. There are a total of 5 letters that get sent out to all of these boys that she once loved, and of course, that just causes a lot of issues for her, and especially with the fact that one of the letters is going to her sister's boyfriend, and that just is an extreme complication right there. So far, I am enjoying this series. I don't think it's like my favorite contemporary romance ever, but it is enjoyable, especially if you like, the high school romance. So I'm really liking it, and I cannot wait to finish the very last one. Okay, so the next books that I have recently hauled are, again, part of a series, but these ones I specifically got from Book Outlet, and they were like super limited amounts of these. There was only like maybe 8, but your girl got a hold of one. And I was very excited about this because this is a series I feel like I have to read, and I just haven't got to it yet. But that is the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. So they had this box set, and like I said, they only had 8 of these, but I got one. And we have all of them. I think, if I am wrong, please correct me, but I believe that the series goes like the first 4 main ones, and then these are like little novellas or like books that take place either after or in between. I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure that like these first 4 are part of this series. If you guys haven't heard of the Lunar Chronicles, they are retellings of very famous fairy tales. Like this very first one, Cinder, is a retelling of literally the name is halfway there. Why can't I think of the last part? Cinderella. But I believe that our main character, who is supposedly Cinderella, is actually like a cyborg, kind of like Terminator style or something like that. I believe that is what it is. I'm not 100%, but that's what I believe. And then, honestly, I don't know for the other ones. This one looks like Rapunzel, the crest one, I think. And then this one looks like Snow White, Winter. So it's very intriguing. Honestly, I'm not always like a huge fan of fairy tales. I've never really gotten into like the Disney princesses or anything like that, but this does sound kind of interesting, especially like if Cinderella's a cyborg. I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. So I've heard nothing but good things. One of my best friends says that this is one of her all-time favorite series. So I definitely want to get into this one. I feel like this is a series that everybody says they have to read if you really like YA fiction. So I don't know. We're going to have to read this. I'm very excited. I'm very intrigued. If you guys have read it before, please let me know your thoughts down below if you liked it or not. Alright, so the next book that I've recently hauled is another one from Book Outlet. Honestly, a lot of these books are going to be from Book Outlet because, like, discounted books are, like, where it's at. But, anyways, this book that I recently picked up is The Night Tiger by, I don't know how to pronounce this, but we're going to try, Yangzi Chu? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and I'm sorry if I'm not. I'm so sorry. So I initially heard of this book from Reese Witherspoon's book club, which usually when it comes from her book club, I take it with a lot of weight because honestly, like Daisy Jones and the Six was part of that, and you know that I love that book. So I usually find that most of the books that are part of that pretty dang good. And I also heard about this book, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I remember Jessie the Reader raving about this one. And once I read the plot for this, I was kind of hooked. I thought it was very interesting. So this book is a historical fiction that takes place in 1930s Malaysia, and we have two main characters. We have Jilin, who is a dressmaker who is trying to go and escape, I think, but she goes down a very dark path. But more interestingly, we have our other main character, Ren, who is an 11-year-old boy that made a promise to his recently deceased master, and that promise was that he needed to find his master's severed finger and bury it with his master. I don't know, it sounds super weird, but I was here for it. And of course, our two main characters who know nothing about each other end up crossing paths throughout the book. And so I think it's very interesting. The whole finger thing is what got me, that it just sounded really weird, and I was interested why this 11-year-old boy is going on this journey trying to find a lost finger. So this book sounds really, really good, and honestly, I don't know when I'll get to it, but I hope that it's very, very soon. Alright, so the next book is one that I've been wanting for a very long time, and they finally put it on Book Outlet, so I got it right away, and that is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. If you guys have been watching any other booktube channels for a while, then you guys know that this book was talked about so much in 2019. Like, everybody was talking about it, and it was very hyped, and I was very excited myself to read it, but I just never bought it, and finally I did. All I know about this book is we have our main character who is a fawnling. Don't know what that means, but she's a fawnling. She gets stripped away from her home and has to be taken to the capital of wherever, I guess, in the book. A capital, and she needs to seek justice. But she ends up getting paired with Nathaniel, who is her enemy, and he is a sorcerer. So, right then and there, I was intrigued because it sounds like to me that we have an enemies to lovers trope, and that is the best trope hands down ever. I absolutely love this trope so much, so if it's in this, then I already feel like I'm gonna love it because enemies to lovers is the best. Alright, so the next two books are a part of another series, and I hauled this because, again, this was one that was raved about so much, and I just needed to read it myself. And that series is A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and also A Heart So Fierce and Broken. So like I said already, this is a series that was raved about, especially because the second one, A Heart So Fierce and Broken, came out in January, so everybody was talking about it already. But honestly, the synopsis for this book sounds super, super good. So this series is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but we got a little bit of a twist in it. We've got, Ren, who's a prince, and he gets cursed because he fell in love with a girl, but then he's cursed and he gets turned into a beast all the time. But then we have our other character, whose name I don't remember right now, and it is Harper. Harper lives in Washington, D.C., like, our typical America or typical world right now, but she gets sucked into the magical world where Prince Ren is, and she don't know where she is. But she's there, and then, she meets Prince Ren, and she's like, oh, God, I can break this curse, blah, 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 whatever. So that sounds interesting to me. To me, it's like, the Fae world. Like, it's there, but you don't know it's there, and then you're just a typical human in the Earth world or whatever, and you get sucked into the other world, and then, yeah. Honestly, that was a terrible explanation, but this sounds really good, really great. Can't wait to get to it. Don't know when, again, but we'll get to it at some point, and I'll let you guys know my thoughts. Alright, so the next book that I recently hauled is part of a series, but I discussed in my January wrap-up how I read the first one, and I really enjoyed it, so I went and bought the second one that came out actually in January as well, and that is One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. So I haven't read this one yet just because I kind of wanted to take a break in between One of Us Is Lying and this one, just so I could, really experience the first one before I dived into this next one, because this next one actually deals with different characters than the ones that we had in the very first book. The characters that are in this book are actually like the younger siblings of the ones from the first book. At least there's one character specifically in this one that we saw a lot of in One of Us Is Lying, and now she is one of the main protagonists in this. And then there's also 3 others. But instead of the Breakfast Club theme that we had in One of Us Is Lying, this one deals with the game of Truth or Dare. But I am excited for this one. Mostly I'm excited to see the main girl that is from the first one that's in this one. I'm excited to see whether the events from the book One of Us Is Lying have any effect with her in this one, especially since she's also a victim in this book, potentially. We don't know yet because we don't know the mystery. We don't know the answers. But really excited to get to this one, and I just cannot wait. Alright, so the next book that I hauled is one that I actually first heard of from Catherine Cassidy here on YouTube. She was doing some video, I think, with her friend, no, her sister, and they were talking about this book, and I had never heard of it prior to that, but since hearing that, I've heard a lot of other people talk about it, and I feel like it's almost like a cult classic on BookTube, like everybody's read it before. But that book is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. So I got this deluxe edition from Book Outlet, of course, and I just really wanted to read it, especially this book isn't very big. It's very thin. There's really not that many pages, so honestly, if I sat down and I read it in one day, I could get done with it. But this book deals with 4 friends, and of course there's an accident, there are secrets involved, and there's love involved, and that's really all I know about it. But I've heard that this book is really, really good, and I'm excited to read it. I think it'll be just a really good contemporary for me to sit down and just enjoy for a day. Okay, so this next book is one that I have heard raved about by, again, another fellow YouTuber, but this YouTuber was Katie Loves Books. She talked about how this is one of her all-time favorites, and that book is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. So this book deals with our main character, Alex, who is no stranger to death and violence, and she actually, from the sound of the synopsis, what it sounds like anyways, is that she actually murdered her sister, and she got away with it. So, basically, she's not afraid to kill if things get in her way. She has a very dark side, but she actually gains the attention of a guy named Jack, who just really wants to get to know her. And then there's also a girl named PK, who is also interested in Alex, and they end up becoming friends, and Jack, her and PK all become intertwined with each other throughout their senior year, and eventually Jack and PK get to see that Alex has a dark side. So I'm really excited about this one, and mostly just because Katie was raving about it. I think that honestly what she raves about is probably really good, because a lot of the books that she talks about are they're solid books. So I'm really excited to get to this one at some point. Alright, so for this next book, if you guys have been following my channel for a while and you've been watching my videos, then you guys probably can guess the reasons why I was very intrigued by this book and why it's very inclined to my particular interests. But that book is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. So the reason I decided to pick up this book is because it deals with courtroom drama. So like I said, if you've been following me for a while, then you guys probably know that I am actually in law school myself. And so anything that deals with the courtroom is just honestly really interesting to me. And this one obviously is no exception to that. So as I mentioned, this is a literary courtroom thriller that deals with our main character, and she is actually accused for murdering her autistic son. And so we get to go through this book and her journey through her trial. I'm really excited to read this book personally, just to see how it compares to actual real life courtroom drama and see if I can figure out what actually happened before the ending of the book as well. So I cannot wait to get to this one, honestly, right now. Probably won't get to this one for a while just because law school is exhausting enough, and when I get home I really don't want to talk about law anymore. But I will be getting to this one at some point. Alright, so for the very last 2 books that I'm going to be discussing with you guys, I'm going to pair these 2 together just because they come from the same source. And that is, these are the books that I chose for my February Book of the Month picks. Alright, so the first one is one that I've been wanting to get my hands on forever. I talked about how this is a book that I definitely want to get to in 2020 at some point, so I finally decided to get it, and that is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I have heard nothing but great things about this book. Everybody seems to absolutely love this book, and honestly anything by Riley Sager everybody loves, but this book in particular, everybody seems to absolutely love it, and I have to get to it. This book deals with our main character Jules, who really is just having a bad day and is really broke and decides to become an apartment sitter in this particular apartment complex. She ends up becoming really good friends with a fellow apartment resident, and from that relationship she learns more about the apartment complex and also about the man whose apartment she is sitting for, and it becomes a really deep and disturbing mystery. And of course there is a killer going around who nobody knows who it is, and she is determined to figure out exactly who that killer is. So, for the very last book in this book haul, and actually my February Book of the Month pick, I chose Anna Kay by Jenny Lee. So honestly, I don't even know if this book is out yet. I think it comes out either at the very end of February or it comes out in the very early of March. But I decided to choose this book as my pick because it sounded very much like Gossip Girl, and I love Gossip Girl. So we have our main character, Anna Kay, who lives in upstate New York, and she's kind of like not satisfied with her life until she meets this guy named Alexia Count Vronsky. So the guy goes by the name Count, and he has never been in love before. He's never in love with a girl before. But of course, he meets Anna Kay, and their romance, it seems like, just blossoms. And I love a good contemporary romance. I think it's going to be really cute. It's going to be a fun little story. And if it's as much like Gossip Girl as I believe it is, then I'm going to love it. So that was my pick. And this is the last book that I have in my book haul. And I cannot wait to get through this one. I think it's going to be really, really good. Okay, so those are the books that I've recently hauled thus far this year, and honestly, like I said earlier, I don't know when I'll be getting to them, but I'm happy that I have them on my shelves because it will just push me to read them that much more. If you guys have read any of these books that I mentioned in this haul, please let me know down below in the comments if you guys like them or not, and whether I need to bump them up higher in my TBR, because your girl needs a little bit of a push when it comes to what she needs to read. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys haven't already, please subscribe. I would love it if you guys join the family, and if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button and hit that notification bell if you guys want to be updated for whenever I upload a video. Again, thank you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!